think most people would agree that full frame is better than micro four thirds. At a cost, a hippo-like cost. It's heavy, expensive. Are you willing to carry this around? Some people are for the better image quality, or is it better now that we have a rival? Panasonic GH6 with a Leica Prime? We might see some comparisons here.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
Alright, I just got back from taking both of these out. This one was on my backpack clip and I'm carrying this one. Take a shot, boom, boom, boom. Through the legs, hold it. Bring this one out, match the shot, yes. That was fun. So I'll show you a bunch of side-by-sides. For the most part, I'm like, wow, better in a lot of cases. And then there's some, of course, deal-breaking flaws that I just found that make me want to cry myself to sleep. Can I sleep in your shed? All right, let's get the logistics out of the way. Panasonic GH6 with this 200mm prime, lens hood, no lens cap, 2244 grams. Versus this bad boy, A7S III, 200 to 600, no teleconverter, even though it's on right now, 3114. So we're talking almost 1,000, maybe 2 pounds less for this little guy, and much smaller, as you can see. So you're saving the weight. Are you saving money? No, not much. 5196, 5396. But this comes with a bullshit teleconverter, which we'll discover soon. If you were to buy the telly for this, which I did, then we're talking 5944 versus 5196. So first shot, I see a duck. I'm like, okay, they moved a little differently, but from what I'm seeing Sony's a little sharper. Leica is a little more filmic and natural looking. You know, I've heard people say Sony has this digital look, and like other companies like Panasonic, they're more filmic. I think I see it now. I don't know which I prefer for wildlife, because you want the sharpness. I don't know, I'm happy with both of those images. But my golly, like this would have been a much better shot if I was zoomed in just a bit more. Little blue kingfisher there. I thought that was the sign of times to come. That was the last we saw of that kingfisher. He was so noisy flying around, like, oh, I'm gonna get some good right in diving. Nothing. Now, one of the worst shots of our time, a heron against a background very close to it. You couldn't get uglier, but I'm seeing a Sony advantage here. That wasn't even at 600. I was out at 400, then I zoomed to 600, and I'm like, that's a much better shot. That's the thing about full frame. At a distance, you can still get a nice separation, even though the Leica's a 5.6 equivalent, and the Sony's 6.3. What is it at 400? Still 6.3, wow. This is a 5.6 to 6.3, and it turns 6.3 at like 300 mil. And then it's 6.3 all the way, so that should have more separation, but distract them with sparrow footage. I did it. Panasonic 4K 120p. I could not see the focus. There, I got the focus. That's one of my quirks about the Panasonic GH6, is even manual focus is not as good as other systems. That's what Panasonic should be the best at, knowing that they suck at autofocus, so make manual focus really good, but they don't. And here's a little HD 240p on the Sony versus 300 frames on the Penny Boy. And I think the Sony's still a little better, just judging by the sharpness of the feathers. I mean, we do see quite a bit of the moire in the Panasonic footage, whereas Sony has it at times, but it's definitely lessened. Here's a little duck footage for you. Wow, male looking over. Like, I think the Sony's better exposed at this point. It's tough to get two shots side by side with two different systems. Even worse is switching lenses, but I did what I could. Point is that Panasonic looks pretty good in the 300 frames. It's slightly slower, but you barely notice the slowness increase from 240 frames. It's a little 60 more. What is that? Come on, 120 leaps. Come on. Now here's a little 4K 60p with dynamic range boost on. Similar type of shot here. I still think Sony looks a little better, but the lighting is different. The duck moved. Ducks are assholes. That's all we know for sure. I really wanted to see with that dynamic range boost mode, are we getting like a full frame look here? Kind of, even though the lighting's never the same. It is never the same. I got some better shots later, but damn you ducks. Now, interestingly, Panasonic does 240p with audio, and it's a higher, like it's more color information. I think it's 10-bit 422 versus the 300 frames is 420 loser footage, but not bad, not bad. I still give the super slow-mo edge to Sony, and I could actually autofocus in it. Here's a pretty similar situation. That was about as close as you're gonna get with two setups and maybe slight edge, but the fact that you're getting results similar with Micro Four Thirds, that's nice. You're in the ballpark now. Like if this was Olympus, I'd be crying like, oh, it's not even close to as good. Now you're in the ballpark for less weight, same money. I like those odds. Now when it comes to 3D pop at a distance, now you can see it. The full frame just, it still has that separation, even though the Panasonic has the same or more background blur, but when you punch in on it, even more so. That's why I think all these equivalence maths, they don't add up. They're lies, like, oh, Tony 2 is a Tony 4 equivalent. I don't think so. Tony 2 more of 5.6, something like in that ballpark. But I tell you, Penny Boy, not bad. If you can ever nail the focus, there it is. There it is. Pretty sharp, right? Like if I said, oh, I'm on my Sony full frame setup, you'd believe me because the background's blown out, you got a sharp image, but look how stable it is. That's the thing I love. And just the colors, like it's a beautiful image. I absolutely enjoy shooting with it until you do a side-by-side with the Sony and then you're like, oh, it is better. It is a little better, but like barely now. They're so close. I love that, how close they are. The 300 frames per second, it is pretty bad and soft, but I imagine I'm going to capture some miracle moments. That wasn't it. And this certainly won't be, just a little hop. But he avoided the thorns. That was interesting, a little peck there at the end. I mean, compared to Penny's sharpest mode now, 4K 60 versus HD 300 is quite the shocking difference, but it depends what you're watching it on. If you're on an 8K Sharp monitor, getting ready to play your 8K camera footage from the Sharp that never came. And I do believe the tonne of the Leica is just a little, I don't know, how, I just don't understand how it's so much more tonne at a less of an equivalence. It's a bunch of bullshit. If you've noticed that any of my Panasonic shots are out of focus, there's good reasons for it. Part user error, but part just disgusting habits by Panasonic. You know the punch in to check focus that now works in recording? No, not above 60 frames per second. So no 4K 120p, none of the HD slow-mos, only 4K 60p can you double check the focus. I just find this viewfinder is shit. And it's hard to judge focus and it's really annoying. It's making me miss many shots. And the fact that I can't punch in to double check, to make matters worse, I attached the teleconverter on there because that lens comes with the teleconverter. They're designed to be used together. Are they? Were they? When you attach the teleconverter, you can no longer do linear manual focus. It just goes to non-linear random mode, where it's just like nothing works ever the way you want it to. Just jumps. You can't go slow. If you go really slow, it doesn't even move. What's the point? It's sold together. And I noticed the image turned to utter crap, I think. I put both teleconverters on. Went for some super slow-mo stuff. I wasn't loving what I was seeing on either of them, really. I don't know, the Sony's really good with the teleconverter in 4K 120, but it's known for having pretty bad HD 240. I'm not loving that teleconverter at all. Not sure I would ever use it. In fact, that bird flew away. He's like, oh, you put a teleconverter on? No, I can't let my family see me like this. No way, I'm out of here. See how out of focus the Panasonic looks? It could be. It could be because it's linear manual focus now and it was so hard to judge it, I feel like it's out and I could never get it back. Now here's a good example of each mode. I had the perfect moment. This bird stayed there for a long time. We got 4K 60 with dynamic range boost versus 4K 120. If anything, the 4K 120 looked sharper for some reason. I don't know if dynamic range lowers the sharpness, who knows? It shouldn't have missed focus because focus stays the same when you switch modes, which is one of the hacks. In 300 frames per second, there's no single autofocus. But if you acquire autofocus in 4K 120 and then switch to 300, you're still in focus. Hack confirmed, unless it looks like dog shit. Here's HD 240 versus 300. I don't know that I even see a difference. They both look pretty similar, not very sharp at all. But if you do the 4K 120 versus 300 frames, now you're seeing it, like how big of a difference it is. It's quite noticeable, but like for a magical moment, you're not gonna mind. And Sony on your right with the teleconverter, no teleconverter for the Leica. I feel like Sony's still a little better. That was the perfect comparison right there. This bird was very well behaved, perfect lighting. It's like, there we go. Sony's just a bit better. That's just a fact. Now here I tried a little autofocus on Panny Boy. It was nailing that bird. Then he leaped out. He's like, no, I'm not gonna let Panasonic autofocus on me. Here's what I noticed. 4K 60p dynamic range boost, animal eye detect in a little zone. So it's like a little zone around the middle. And the box was on him, but I am seeing some serious pulsing in the background. Oh, that pulsing.
Panasonic autofocus, pulsing in the background. Never felt so lost and hopeless. All I wanted was to catch the moment, but I missed the shot and now I'm homeless. Pulsing in the background. Face detect exists, you bunch of dickheads. Focused on the algorithms instead. Sony sensors outperform the Tower Jazz ones. Made of cinnamon buns in your S5. I wanna focus on your eyeball, but you jump back and forth and say it's my fault. I wanna cry but nobody would see it. I'm the laughing stock that nobody believes in. Pulsing in the background. Panasonic autofocus. Pulsing in the background, hope no one notices.
There was a sequence that I felt like it was nailing it. Even as it went behind this branch, I was gonna go to the other side and then I was like, no, he'll come out to the... It was like nailing it. So I imagine sometimes it'll be somewhat usable, but there's a lot of pulsing still if you look for it in the twig tone. The pulsing in the twig tone. I mean, it's not like Sony's perfect with its autofocus. If you have a little spot right on its eye or something, like it'll do really good as you're seeing, like, okay. But it's tough to keep a bird in that tiny spot. And if it's any bigger, then it will latch to a twig in front. So like, it's totally usable. Some of my shots in this video were autofocus because it is actually, see that? How it'll go out if you move that box too much. And it can be panic inducing. But like for the most part, Sony autofocus can't be beat. So my conclusions after taking both of those out, what's the better buy? Like now that they're the same money, it's just the weight factor. You can't even see that weight. This really does weigh on you, but I find getting the shot is always easier on the Sony. Whether I'm like autofocusing and then manual, or just straight manual going, the manual focus is so good on Sony's. Like it's exactly like you think it would be. The movements just go, they're accurate. Even the manual focus, it's insane, and that zoom can be done so gently and slowly. The image is sharper. It's just the weight. That's like literally it. Color science is fine for nature. I'm not seeing... The only real advantage this had, in my opinion, was the stabilization was noticeably better. This one will sway up and down, and it's really hard to nail that still. Whereas this one, just like tripod level, fantastic. I'm not even sure what I should do with this. Should I keep it? Like, this is my dedicated wildlife and then Sony's doing something else? Or like, because it's not like so much lighter that I could travel with this easily. It's still a pain in the ass. I just don't know that the result, and just that viewfinder, like, why'd you do it? Why is judging focus so hard? That's what's killing me about this. And just being a prime that's not super long, I thought I was getting pixel to pixel modes that would crop in for me. That's one of the reasons I bought this. So Panasonic just, I felt like they lied to me with those modes. They do nothing, just crop in and post. It's the same exact thing, if not better, crop in and post. I don't see it. Like, this was your chance. Leica prime lens. You can't get better than this. And you're like just matching or de-lowering from Sony's zoom lens. That's like kind of like a budget zoom lens. If I did the 400mm 2.8 prime, this would be like degraded to basement level. So I don't know, I'm a little disappointed in it. After today, just the manual focusing, that's hard. And that's like the main thing. You know you're not using autofocus, so you have to have a nice experience getting your shot. And that's not it. So we got a lot of soul searching to do. Where does Panty Boy fit in my life? I don't know, man. I could easily see myself abandoning you again. So we'll see. But for you, there's affiliate links down below. You might as well experiment. Just get a couple of them. I would. It helps the channel. You buying a shirt? Camera Conspiracies shirt? You're not?